Casey, I want to go back to Elise and Steve. And Steve, give me your take on this. I mean, I guess there's sort of a rule of thumb when you pick a vice president, right? And again, we think this could happen today. It could happen any hour now. It's do no harm. Given that, first of all, do you believe that? Second of all, what do you think about a Vilsack or a Kaine?
Well, I think first, you're absolutely right. The first rule of politics in these kinds of decisions is to do no harm, and hopefully to do some good. And I think what you would see in either of those picks is someone who Hillary Clinton, most importantly, is very comfortable with, somebody who she believes that could step into the job and do it well day one. They both have executive experience. They've both been governors. They're both sort of relatively moderate Democrats from swing states and very popular Democrats in those states. So a Tim Kaine, for instance, might give you Virginia. It's very difficult for Donald Trump if you put Virginia in the blue column and you take it out of the purple column. You've just taken another opportunity away from him. Similarly, Iowa, which is a battleground state, recent polls have shown the race very competitive in Iowa. One even showed Trump ahead. If you put Tom Vilsack on the ticket, you probably put Iowa away. So those are important considerations as well. But the first, as you pointed out, Chris, and most important, is do no harm. And I agree. You know, I think Cory Booker or Elizabeth Warren or Tom Perez would each make exciting vice presidential picks. They would excite the base. They would generate enthusiasm among the Sanders voters. But at this point, this election is going to be decided by those voters who are trying to decide between Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton, and they're swing voters. They're not base voters. Any base voter who's making that decision on the Democratic side isn't really a base voter at all, because they would have already made their decision. So I think you're going to see
Elise,
a centrist pick. I'm sorry.
No, I was just going to say, Elise, you know, when you talk about do no harm, nobody knows that better probably than John McCain, who will probably forever be talking about the Sarah Palin situation. So from a Republican point of view, any of these names that are out there that legitimately are being considered VP, is there one that you think could be problematic for Hillary Clinton, or are all these pretty much down the middle for you?
Well, I think that Tim Kaine's certainly the safe pick, and that's where, if I was going to bet on it, I would say he's going to get the nod. But I do think it's tricky with Elizabeth Warren and with Cory Booker and with more, you know, if she chose a more progressive Democrat, just because, you know, like Steve said, those aren't the voters that she necessarily needs right now. She needs to excite the base. She needs to ensure their turnout. But the Clintons are going to have a strong ground operation, and those votes are likely going to come to her. She really needs those swing voters to come over and really push the margins in her favor. And I think that you see what Donald Trump did with his pick of Mike Pence, and he was a very safe conservative pick. He keeps the base happy, but he also looks very steady, and he seemed very, you know, he really rose to the occasion with his convention speech the other night, and you could see him as a presidential figure. And so Hillary Clinton needs a similar pick, but from the Democratic side, of course.
And Steve, when we look at those swing voters, you got to talk about Bernie Sanders, and it was really interesting how his name was invoked last night by Donald Trump. Given that he's going to be speaking on Monday, not Wednesday like Ted Cruz, he has given his support to Hillary Clinton, says he will do everything he can to make sure that Donald Trump isn't elected. But as you see this race going forward over the next several months, how important does Bernie Sanders become? How important is the speech? How important are the meetings that he's going to have here in Philadelphia with his supporters?
I think Bernie Sanders becomes very important. I mean, obviously, in terms of exciting the base, Bernie Sanders did that as well as anybody in recent memory. And I think for Bernie Sanders to go out there and say, Donald Trump shouldn't be invoking my name and seeking support from my supporters because Donald Trump is an anathema to everything we believe, I think that will be very powerful. I also think, by the way, that having you know, if you have a moderate centrist Democrat, that kind of a person appeals to those voters as well. Joe Biden, for instance, was a fairly moderate centrist Democrat, and no one's more popular in Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, some of the states we're talking about, Ohio, as a Joe Biden. I think Tom Vilsack or Tim Kaine sort of fit the Biden mold would be good choices.
Steve McMahon, Elise Jordan, good to have both of you here. Thank you so much.